Welcome to the What's in Store podcast from IDDBA.
Hello, I'm David Haaf, President and CEO of IDDBA, and welcome to the What's in Store podcast. You're listening to the Executive Aisle, our special series where I sit down with leaders shaping the landscape of our industry in dairy, deli, bakery, and beyond. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's dive into today's conversation with our guest, David Melnick, Partner and EVP of Brand Integration at Marriner Marketing. I might add, an impressive leader who managed to make a big splash at our general session stage at IDDBA 25 in New Orleans in only 4 minutes. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I'm excited to be here.
You bet. David, why don't we start by you giving the listeners just a brief overview of your role with Marriner Marketing and a few of the key areas that Marriner is assisting both our suppliers and retailers in the industry.
Sure. So let me start by just giving a brief overview of who Marriner Marketing is. We are what we call a brand transformation and marketing activation agency that specializes in the food and beverage industry. So what that really means is whether a brand is looking to innovate and rebrand, reposition themselves and transform their brand in that way, or whether they're looking to transform how they go to market from a marketing messaging standpoint, or really just transform the tactics and the approaches that they have and how to best connect with their target audience, their customers, and the people that should be their customers. That's really where we specialize through a full suite of in-house capabilities that can handle pretty much any marketing need that our customers have. So my role is manifold, really. I'm a partner in the business, so I'm helping to steer and guide the vision of Marriner Marketing along with my business partners and our senior leadership team. I oversee business development, and I also have ultimate accountability for the creative and digital work product that comes out of the agency. So ensuring that we are pushing forward from a creativity standpoint, that we're pushing forward from a technology standpoint to be current, to be relevant, and to always make sure that we are connecting our customers and their brands with their target audience in the most relevant and meaningful way on both an emotional and a practical level. So we do that for a number of customers in the food and beverage industry, some of which exhibited at IDDBA this year, including our friends at Michael Foods. I know Puratos has been there in the past. We've done some work with J&J Snacks, just to name a few.
Absolutely. And you know, David, a couple things that catch my eye when we look through your website and all the wonderful things that Marriner Marketing's doing is a couple phrases. Smart work paves the path. And I think the one that really stands out that I know you talk a lot about is clarity is our special sauce. You take just a second and then we'll dive into some questions on that. But clarity is our special sauce.
Yeah, so in today's world, there's so much data available. There's so much information available. There's so many opinions and crowdsourced opinions and people offering opinions who've never been asked to offer their opinion. And what we like to say is that clarity is all about sifting through the noise, the nonsense, and the distractions to uncover those salient points that allow us to make smart decisions and really unleash the full potential of your brand. And the reason why that really matters is because we know nowadays more than ever, what we say is commitments are made with the heart and decisions are made with the head. Yeah. And we want to make sure that we're getting people out of just making fleeting decisions and truly making commitments. So by sifting through the noise, the nonsense, the distractions, uncovering those salient points about your brand and the target audience, we're able to connect the heart of your brand with the heart of your target and make sure that there's that deeper connection, that there's a deeper connection that makes it more of a commitment, that makes sure that it's not just a fleeting decision where your competitor can come up and offer something a little bit cheaper, but that there is a true North Star for your brand so that all communication is consistent and meaningful to the people that need to hear the message the most.
Absolutely. I like it. So on that note, I'm going to jump into my first question for you, David. From your perspective, how has the role of retail food service marketing evolved post-pandemic? And along with that, what are some trends that you feel are here to stay?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the evolution and the trends are pretty closely tied together, David. For instance, we know that food service is becoming more and more, food service at retail specifically is becoming more and more of a viable alternative to restaurants. And I believe it's even your statistics that were published that said that, prepared and semi-prepared foods are really booming. And I think it was almost 65% of really young consumers are purchasing deli prepared foods almost once a week. So there's a lot of growth there. And what we also know is that they're looking for more shoppable meals through the perimeter. So they're getting deli mains and they're getting bakery sides and they're getting some dairy to top it all off. And they're making their meals from these hybrid meal solutions that are available, as well as some of the fully prepared meals that exist at food service at retail. So that's a really important trend that I think a lot of retailers are taking advantage of, and manufacturers are trying to find ways through retail to take advantage of that as well. The other important trend is that hybrid shopping has not gone away. So whether that's people not only coming in retail to shop, whether it's click and collect, whether it's ordering online and having it delivered, there is this expectation of a really seamless experience between the physical and the digital experiences. It's a really important part of how people are shopping and the expectations that they have for their shopping experience.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, David. As you know, I just came out of retail here before taking the new role. And I mean, HMR, home meal replacement, by far was the highest and fastest growing category, or I should probably say categories, in our spectrum at Food City. So I think you're spot on there.
Well, everybody runs into the same problem, right? And it's an old adage, but it's 4 p.m., what's for dinner?
Yep.
And finding that easy solution in our increasingly busy and packed lives is a really important part of how a parent or whatever it might be can be a hero and make sure that they're feeding their families and themselves something that's nutritious, that's hearty, that's meaningful to them, that aligns with their values, and all of those things. And retail has really stepped up to provide those options.
I agree. So let's shift over to your angle a little bit from the marketing side. What are the most innovative campaigns or activations you've seen lately that really move the needle, and what can we learn from them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, innovation is such a curious word in some ways because it all stems from what's the insight and what's the result. Why is it meaningful? So I can think of a few examples. I think Tillamook did a really nice job with their block party activation, which is a really fun campaign where they started creating songs about their cheese, and they turned a product, cheese, into something that became really culturally relevant and sort of a trending thing. And what was important about this is, again, it's a product, it's in some ways a commodity that can certainly be branded, but they gave it an emotional appeal.
Yep.
They gave it a reason to stand above the competitors and to align with the values and the sensibilities of the target audience in a more meaningful way, talking about the features and benefits of their cheese or even the flavor. It connects on a higher level purpose. We talk about the Bain pyramids all the time, and sort of Bain had done some research on how people make decisions and how people make commitments. And at the bottom of the pyramid are how people rationalize and justify the decisions they make. And it's things like, does it save me time? Does it save me money? But the real commitments are made at the top of the pyramid with things like, does it align with my values? Does it give me a sense of purpose? Does it give me a sense of community? And I think that Tillamook campaign really played at the top of the pyramid and was very meaningful. I also think the fresh market has done a good job. I know they have their little big meals initiative every week where they're tapping into, again, these family meals for a reasonable price that are all packaged together. It makes it really easy to shop, but they're tying into different culinary styles on a weekly basis. They're doing a lot of storytelling in their packaging and their marketing of it. And again, they're giving it more meaning than just packaging food. And it becomes a story, and that story becomes an important part of the shopping experience. And the last thing I'll talk about is we had done a very interesting initiative here at Marriner working with McCormick. And what we realized when looking at the target audience with McCormick Spices is that millennial chefs loved to cook, and they love to cook ethnic dishes, but unfortunately, their aspirations outpace their talents in a lot of ways. So they're overshooting on what they want to try to do, and that becomes a problem when you're asking them to buy a $10 bottle of cardamom. So we created a program where we packaged the spices in little 1 ounce packages. We created a merchandising unit that could be placed in the spice section of stores, in the baking section of stores. And we merchandised it in a way where everything was color coded with recipes on the side panels that you could scan. And you could figure out what of the 1 ounce packages do you need to make that meal for tonight without overextending your budget and making sure that you were capable before you invested a lot in the spices. And not only did we see tremendous use of these 1 ounce products, but we also saw about a 12 to 15% increase in full units sold as well, because people realized that they could make these with the help of our recipe inspiration and our directions. And it was also great for the retailers because our recipes not only had them buying the spices and the seasonings, but it had them shopping around the retail experience to get all the other ingredients that they needed to make the meals. So that was a really what we consider innovative and effective use of marketing.
You start talking about storytelling and touching to the emotions. I mean, that's something we preached for my previous 20 years in Deli Bakery is telling that story and getting them to indulge into those emotions. So that's great. So let me shift gears.
Yeah, David, it's so important because, again, people they're more educated than ever. Mm-hmm. They can find all the nutritional information. They're doing so much research before they walk in the store or even on their phone when they're in the store.
Yep.
We have to capture their attention in other ways. We have to capture their attention through what is that story that's going to connect with them emotionally? What's going to make them pick up that product over a competitive product? And it's not just going to be the ingredients or the nutritional panel. It's going to be the story that it tells. It's going to be how the packaging looks and how it makes them feel.
Agreed. Well, David, let me shift gears to something that I know we are talking a lot about in our trends. Certainly, we're emphasizing a lot at our show, and just I think it's a hot topic that people like to talk about. Not everybody is fully engaged in it, at least when it comes to our categories at retail, and that's how critical is the shift to digital and social media in today's retail food service marketing strategies? And then with that, what separates brands that are just present from those that are truly engaging?
It could be the most critical shift of our generation, quite honestly, mm-hmm. right? I mean, again, we've already talked about the experience that people have shopping and how they're choosing to shop, and that it's a hybrid mindset. And we've talked about how people are doing so much more research and that they're gaining more inspiration from online. So we know that, again, I think it was your research, but almost 75% of the younger generations are buying a product from the deli, dairy, or bakery after seeing it on social media.
Yeah.
So you have to have a presence. But again, social media can be a wasteland of scrolling if you don't do something to capture their attention. Mm-hmm. So what's going to really separate those that are successful from those that are just being present is consistency, because again, you have to show up when they're scrolling, otherwise it's fleeting and it's gone. And you have to do something that's going to capture their attention. So that's going to be really important as well. Back to the storytelling. How do you tell stories in such a short period of time? How do you tell in 7 to 10 seconds? How do you tell stories in 20 to 30 seconds? And then how do you try to keep them for longer periods of time for more meaningful long-form content? And that's really all about what does your brand stand for? And a lot of brands forget to get back to the roots of what do we stand for? What is our why? Why do we exist? Why is it different from our competitors? And then how do we tell that story in meaningful, bite-sized ways that are very compelling to the target audience? So I think social media is really important, and digital is incredibly important. Again, getting people to shop online, getting people inspired, meeting the shopper where they are is really important. And we know that shoppers are online. Mm-hmm. So there's so much advanced targeting opportunities, whether it's geographic, whether it's behavioral, whether it's contextual. We can reach very specific audiences with very specific messages nowadays to help inspire them, motivate them, mobilize them, to purchase. So digital is an incredibly meaningful and, quite honestly, efficient way to reach your target audience. And don't forget about the email campaigns. Once you actually can get them in your ecosystem, email can be an incredibly effective and efficient way to drive behavior.
No, I agree 100%. So a little bit on that note, David, there's a plethora of data available to the retailers and suppliers, quite frankly, out there. Whether it's using Circana or NIQ, whoever your information provider might be, it's still an opportunity out there to try and utilize the correct data.
Yeah, so data is critical. There's an old saying, though, that knowledge is power. Data in and of itself isn't really the power. The power comes from understanding what to do with that data. Because again, there's so much, as you said, it can be paralyzing, it can be overwhelming. But data can allow for greater personalization. It can lead to more informed R&D. It can lead to more precise marketing, as I was just talking about. And that's all important. And I know that some brands like, I think it's Schnook Markets in the Midwest is such a technology-driven retailer. I think they're doing AI-driven salad bars, and they're using AI-driven bots for inventory management, and like such a technology-rich retailer. It's a really important part of the information, and we use it all the time from our marketing standpoint, not only to inform the strategies that we're going to implement by getting a deeper understanding of customer habits and retail environment and micro and macro trends and all of these wonderful things that data can provide, but then also on the back end for optimizations of what's working, what's not working, and how can we make sure that we're spending our customers' dollars as effectively and as efficiently as possible. We never mind going back to a customer and saying, hey, we thought this was a great idea. It's off target a little bit for X, Y, and Z reasons, but we're going to optimize because of this data to make sure that it's as effective as possible. But I think there's an important point in all this too, which is data is wonderful and data is important and data is a valuable tool, but we can't forget about human instinct. And this might be a silly story, but I'm often reminded about the wonderful movie Trading Places from, I think it was the 80s. And I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, but there's a wonderful scene where Eddie Murphy's character is brought in to help analyze delis. His bosses want to try to sell because the data is saying it's hit rock bottom, but Eddie Murphy's character, Billy Ray Valentine, recognizes that there's a human truth that's missing, which is it's Christmas time and people are panicking because they're not going to be able to buy their children the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. So he knew that prices were going to continue to drop. So my point is that you can't just go on the data alone. There is a human instinct. There's a humanity there. Marketing is a person-to-person communication in the end. And data is a tool to help manifest that. But so is human instinct. And I think if there's one tip that I would give to any CEO, to any CMO, is the data is wonderful, but don't forget about the instinct. Don't forget about the humanity.
No, I think you're spot on there. And you jumped right into what I was going to ask as we look to wrap up. Is there any other piece of advice on the CEOs and the CMOs listening in today on food service customer data? I think we touched on it. Any other little tidbits you'd like to leave with them as we get ready to close up?
Well, I'm always going to say that clarity matters. The future of food service marketing, it isn't just about what you sell, but it's about how well you understand the intersection of what you sell into the lives of the people that are buying it. And I think that's really important. And the way to do that isn't by selling SKUs, it's by selling solutions and stories. And that's really important. How do we make sure that our products are making the customers the heroes in their own story? Don't afraid to be different, right? There's too many people that are chasing their competitors and they want to be like them. But it takes someone who is bold, who has vision, who has some guts to really say, how can I be different? How can I stand out? And how can I make sure that what I'm doing isn't just appealing to my colleagues in the boardroom, but that I'm always taking a customer first mindset and making sure that everything I'm doing is appealing to those that matter most, my customers and the people that should be my customers.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, David. We used to say in my previous life that the perimeter department was the points of differentiation, regardless of whether it was the hand-cut meats in the meat department, the local produce in the produce department. But no offense, Center Store all had a can of green beans. Bananas were there, the ground beef was there. But in Dairy-Deli-Bakery, we really considered ourselves points of differentiation and focusing in on those signature items that differentiated us from our competition. And I think that's kind of what you're touching on there for sure.
Yeah, without question. Perimeter is probably the most exciting part of retail right now. It's where a lot of innovation is happening. It's where you can pivot quickly. It's where you can jump on the trends in a really meaningful way to appeal to your customers and their needs. So we love the dairy bakery space. We love the perimeter of retail, and we see nothing but opportunity for customers who are ready to take advantage, and we're happy to help them.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us today. Much appreciated. I think you brought some great insights for our listeners to take under consideration. And again, we wish you all the best.
Hey, thank you for having me, David. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the time at IDDBA this year as well. It was a really tremendous show.
Very good. And to our listeners, we want to say thank you for listening to the Executive Aisle. And stay tuned next month for our next episode of the What's in Store podcast.